UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects, false flag alien invasions, PSYOP, drones, or other human-made aircraft? Join the discussion now on UAP Crossfire.
Good evening to the greatest audience on the planet. Welcome to UAP Crossfire. It's nice to have you with us on this Thursday evening. Joining me tonight is Chris DePerno. Chris, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Nothing. Getting a little chilly, getting ready for winter. Got the snowblower getting worked on so I can enjoy the winter wonderland of Buffalo, New York.
Oh,
the devil's playground, so to speak.
Devil's playground. I always say Satan took a dump.
Well, Commander Cobra, welcome to you.
Thank you.
Nice Starfield background there.
Well, that's actually a 3i, or 3i Atlas, I should say. That's one of the latest pictures that was taken and on the spectroscope. And I know we're going to be chatting about that since it is the phenomena of the times that we live in right now. It's great to talk to you all. Same thing, getting a little chilly here. And all our crits are starting to put on their winter coats. I had to tuck in Zeppelin the pig before the show to get him all comfy in his bed. And I'm glad to be with you both. Just a quick advance note, I'll be out traveling. As you know, I've been telling you guys offline, my project is getting close for preparing for test flight operations. So I'll be, it takes quite a bit of parliamentary procedure to iron out all the things we're going to do. So I'll be off station next week, try to listen into the show, but I probably won't get a chance to check in, but you never know. I might get lucky and pop in for a little bit.
It's nice of the aliens to decorate 3i Atlas for Christmas. Very festive color scheme that they have there. Tonight is the book club edition of UAP Crossfire, when we will be sharing some of the most impactful UAP-related reading that the team has done. We also, before we want to begin, wish Don Ecker good health. He was feeling a little under the weather this evening, so he couldn't be with us. But coming in to weigh in on his reading material is our own Skywatcher, Bill Fort. Bill, how are you doing tonight?
It would be helpful if I unmuted, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Doing great. And I don't want to make it sound like 3 is a charm, but it's getting cold here as well. So I don't know how it is where you, Dan, how it is there, but we're freezing.
Oh, you mean sunny South Dakota?
I thought it's cold there every July. I think they got snow, don't they? Don't you, Padre?
It has snowed every month of the year in the Black Hills, yes.
So, and again, I also want to emphasize, hope that Don is feeling better, and his love to his wife, Vicky, who's just an amazing individual.
Can you imagine being Vicky dealing with him when he's not feeling well? I think Dan needs to do a special prayer off air just to bless that whole situation. I love it.
I can't imagine.
You always know he's getting better when he gets grumpy.
Right.
Or grumpier.
Yeah.
Another thing, the next show that is airing is on the 14th. So happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there, and in memory for those that sacrificed so much for this country and all our freedoms. And there are 2 of them right here on the screen. We have Commander and Chris and the Silverback. Okay. And again, happy Veterans Day today. But as Dan mentioned, before you guys continue, there are 2, since this is the book club edition, there are 2 books. And one of them is what the Silverback always talks about. And it's this one right here. The UFO Cover-Up by Lawrence Fawcett and Barry Greenwood. This is the one he always refers to. And there are actual documents in this book. And I'm just going to read on the back because it's actually in part of the book, which I always refer to why disclosure will never happen, because there's actually there's a precedent that was decided in the courts. I think it was in the early 80s. The implication of these documents and those whose existence has been established in court, but whose release was forbidden by those courts, are on grounds that national security might be jeopardized. So when it comes to this stuff, and I know I would like to hear your comments after I get off. But when it comes to this kind of stuff and it's deemed national security, I don't care what kind of process you try to go for declassification. It's not going to happen because it's going to go under the guise under national security. So even though the public may want it, if the government deems it's part of national security, you could forget about it because it's not going to happen. And there is court precedent on that. So remember that. That's very important. And Chris, Mr. DePerno, you may know this one exactly to detail because of your MUFON background. And this is a really important.
Crash retrievals.
Yep. Leonard Stringfield.
Leonard Stringfield, yeah.
This is an incredible data-driven book. I recommend it to anyone that's out there that wants to really read something that's actually incredibly done. I think MUFON has the diaries. Doesn't MUFON have that?
I was actually privileged to get part of those diaries to investigate. There were 3 of us in the United States that were picked to take Leonard Stringfield's diaries, dissect them, and to pull out some of the best stuff that we could give at the symposium and stuff. And they're actually amazing diaries. I mean, it takes a while to dissect some of the topics that he was talking about because, I mean, he sometimes he would actually write in code, and you'd have to go back and take a look at, you know, who was A1 or B2, and so sometimes he wouldn't use names. He would use some kind of code. Yeah, some kind of code to identify things. But I will tell you that they're putting the diaries up on the MUFON website. If you get a chance, really take a look at them. You'll find stuff that he talked about, was able to know that I've never even heard about before in the ufology field.
Well, there you go. So those are my 2 recommendations, gentlemen, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys recommend. So, Dan, thank you for a few minutes to have me on.
Before you go, Bill, in the background there, is that the Bulgosphere that I see, that orb that's behind you, or what is that?
That's actually
That's why?
That's Star Wars. That actually lights up. That's a model I made.
Billy, would you show some of the models you made? Because I mean, if you look at some of the models, they're very, very good, folks.
Yeah.
Oh well, I actually put the lights in on it, and a lot of these models are not made for lighting. I actually did it myself. I'll put the camera without. Hopefully, the camera will.
When we make our movie, this will be some of the props that we use in our movie.
You got the Millennium Falcon. You've got the Star Destroyer here. Right here, this guy in the dark is a battlecruiser Romulan. There's a lot of Star Trek here. There's other stuff here that probably a lot of people would know. That's an old cartoon I used to watch as a kid. G-Force Battle of the Planets, right there. So yeah, there's a lot of goodies, but I have no models compared to what Dan has in his background. He's got
yeah.
But we're not seeing it tonight.
Yeah.
Not tonight, but you got an incredible collection of models. But anyway, gentlemen, have a great rest of your show, and have a great weekend. And hello to all those that are watching and listening. And see you guys later. Have a great one.
And always, we want to welcome our people in chat. We thank you for joining us tonight. And if you have any questions as we roll on through our program, go ahead and type them in there, and we'll do our best to answer those for you. Well, it's book night, so we'll start with you, Chris. Tell us what you've been reading and a little bit about it.
Well, you know, I done a lot of dabbling in abductions, and part of when I was the state director for MUFON, I was also part of the abduction team and stuff. And so they actually call it Experiencer now, so that's the way I should call it, Experiencer Resource Team. So I like doing those type of cases and stuff. And so I bought this book quite some time ago. When I do that, it was by Craig Campoposo, and it's called The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. It actually lists all the suspected species here that have visited Earth. I got to tell you something. I wish I had got this book when I was 18 or 19 years old, because some of the extraterrestrial women are pretty damn good looking in this book. The drawing.
Oh my word!
Here, take a look. I mean, that's a Segungus alphathon or something like that. A couple of beers, I'd probably ask her out. And there's another one that I thought was, I mean, this is an Escuderian female. I guess they have the same packet of dresses that our people here is that, so I was pretty impressed. But here's the other thing about this. They actually mentioned, I was shocked when I saw this, they actually mentioned about Angelica figures. They have a drawing of Michael. And they actually do a whole chapter on Angelica features in this extraterrestrial book, which I thought was pretty interesting. So what I liked about it is, Sergeant Stone, I can't remember his first name, but so I'll call him Sergeant Stone. He said that over 85 species have visited this Earth, this planet. And also other ufologists have said that. So this guy must have done a lot of research on the extraterrestrial species of this book because he really went out to try to get drawings or markings and everything. I mean, I hate to see this guy in a dark alley. I mean,
I have seen him.
Oh, yeah. I've probably seen him after a half a tank of bourbon, and stuff. That's about it. But I mean, the species that they have in here, like this is a Bisonic male, whatever a Bisonic male is, and stuff like that. So it was. Can you imagine being abducted by something like that? I'd be going, oh God, get me the hell out of here, and stuff.
Well, that may be actually a literal input there that you made, or a Freudian slip of such.
Oh God, get me out of here.
Yeah, or get me the hell out of here.
Oh, give me.
I mean, if you look at some of those drawings, and I actually am familiar with that book. I think that the couple interesting conclusions that I drew from it, no pun intended, is that one, there is an interesting intersect of the different paranormal kinds of experiences people have had around the UFO/UAP event. I remember many, many years back, one of the experiencers talking about her family and the symbology that was on the craft, what had happened. A very religious woman, and she, if you think about what you talked about, the angelic beings or beings that are attributed to having angelic, you see some of them have that. It does have an interesting early depiction of it's just not, saucer men and or women or saucer beings. There's a lot of going out there. Now, just recently on my early morning sojourns, I heard Stanton Friedman, a recording that was done for Coast to Coast just before he passed away, about 7 months before he passed away. And he talked about how the science of what they predicted that's available in our galaxy for habitable planets has dramatically changed. And it's changed in magnitudes of where we used to think that for maybe every million stars, there might be something out there that would be a planet like Earth or something that would sustain life in some form that we would know that would have crafts. Well, that's changed now. Now they're at the point where they're saying every star that you see, there is a likely possibility that there is a habitable planet. So that's what you can see at night. Now, if you take what Mark D'Antonio talks about, how at one point it would take all the planets in our solar system to be used to create the energy. That was one of the things that they first talked about, to create the drives, the ability to navigate space and time. That's changed dramatically. And they're starting to come down to numbers of energy consumption or energy conversion. That probably is a better way to state it. That is much, much less. We're talking when you say something that's 10 to the first power or 10 to the second power is now changing into much higher magnitudes, 10 to the 10th or 12th or 13th. What I mean by that math is, in those areas, things are collapsing because we're getting deeper into science. So when you talk about 84 to 85 different types of beings that are documented in that book, we're actually at that point when you think about if every star out there has the possibility now in science, and you all know how I feel about trust the science. Trust the science, but be ready for it to change, I guess is the way I would like to phrase that. But if you look at that, that really does tell me a couple things. We are getting further down the understanding that what we had said is absolutely the only way it can be is not so much. And there is a lot more available now because we're starting to understand that the physics that we understood and what we couldn't explain is starting to be explained a little bit more. I think it's an interesting book.
It is a very interesting book. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Padre.
I was going to ask you a question, Chris. Are all of the aliens depicted in that book humanoid?
No. No, I'm going to be honest.
But all the female ones he's interested are kind of that way. He did go through a phase when he was into reptilian women or reptilian females, but we don't like to talk about on air.
Palladian. Calvin Parker thought he was abducted by a Palladian woman. Remember?
I thought you kept saying Canadian. Oh, I'm so glad we didn't offend our neighbors to the north. That would have been terrible.
But anyways, he said, as he was being abducted, he told me, he says, you know, if I had the chance, I probably would have asked her out. And so, instead he got thrown back in the bushes or whatever after he was abducted. But you're right. There are all kinds. It goes from blue Sirian being to, solar light beings to Ummentides. I never even heard that. Well, look at the vegans. Look, I mean, the vegans.
A little dated in the hairstyle.
It could be a wig. I don't know. Maybe it's a projector.
Definitely, it was breakfast at Tiffany's. I guess that'd be breakfast at Saturn or one of the moons of Saturn kind of hairstyle look there. So but in the chat room, all kidding aside, how many alien abductions occur worldwide each year?
I will tell you that there's no way of finding that out. And Rick, thank you for that question. I could tell you that here in the United States, a lot of abductions don't get reported, but I can tell you the Experience Resource team is swamped with the reports that we get. We get data sheets on people who report their abductions. And when I was brought into the team and started doing these cases, I was shocked at the amount that even New York had of abduction cases. And so I could tell you that New York had a lot of them. California had quite a bit, Arizona. And so worldwide, we just don't know because some places just don't report it. But there's more than what people think. And that's all kidding aside.
Well, let me ask you this, as an investigator who's looked into it, in your region where you've been active there, New York, how many abductions occur, say, in a month? Do you any guess?
We get probably 3 or 4 abduction cases a month. Anywhere from 3 or 4 to abduction cases a month. Now, how many
is that claims? Is that reports? People putting in the report claiming?
Those are not actual cases that we said, "Oh, wow, this is."
Right.
See, the thing is in an abduction case, it's very hard unless you have physical evidence. It's very hard to determine whether it was something else or not. It's not the same as a UFO case because you really have very little evidence to go on. Sometimes you do get lucky and you do get pictures or scoop marks or things of that nature that you can tag on. And that's what we look for. We look for certain things in an abduction case. For instance, we'll ask questions like, and for Rick to answer that, will look for things like dehydration, a craving for salt, a craving for protein, multiple abductions, family generational abductions, the ability to not be able to wear certain type of jewelry like watches because they just batteries just die out at an unusual pace. Things of that nature, a loss of weight, dreams that that's one of the things that most abduction cases, probably 99.9, that they start dreaming about things that they've never dreamt about before. And we see that a lot with that. And the dreams are not good. They're based, a lot of them are nuclear war, the Holocaust of a nuclear war, what would happen. So, a hypothesis to that is that we think that there's a message being sent. Now, the other thing with abduction cases, and I'm just answering Rick's question and then I'll shut up, is that we seem to know that people have been downloaded with information that they can't obtain. Again, 99% of the abduction cases, people will say this without even asking them and say, Chris, I felt that there was information they gave me, but I can't access it. I know it's there, but I can't access it. And a lot of abductees have said that. So a lot of abductees don't want to tell us. They simply don't want anything to do with it. A friend will say, hey, why don't you go talk to Chris, or why don't you go talk to MUFON or something? And they're very resistant because, that's a big thing to talk about an alien abduction.
Why do they come forward?
I think that they feel they got to get it off their chest, Padre, and that's one thing. They feel relief after talking to somebody that's not going to laugh at them. Look, okay. When I was a police officer, I can tell you that people have called the police on alien sightings, not abductions, but sighting of aliens and stuff like that. And let's face it, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, you would look at them and say, yeah, there's nothing back in your backyard, miss. Thank you. Have a good time and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Any aliens back there? Nope. No, nobody answered me. But nowadays, people are taking it more serious because the evidence is coming forward from credible people. And so what we used to do in the past is now changing because we take it a little more serious than what we did in the 80s. And that's just because lack of education on it. Police officers are not schooled in that type of stuff, Dan. And even nowadays, a lot of police departments won't touch it.
You mentioned something that will tie into a book I'm going to talk about, and I just want to verify that. A family history of abductions. Is that a prevalent thing?
Yes.
Yep.
And it's a very scary thing. Yeah, go ahead, Commander.
Well, I just wanted to throw in there, I just uttered that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you both, but, we had a few weeks back, Travis was on with us. Mm-hmm. And I think Travis's case, especially how well it has been documented, researched, and the breadth of time that we've been frankly lucky that he's been with us. Two things. He didn't want that to happen, and he's the first one to tell you he wished that he didn't happen. But his ability to talk about it and explore the experience, I think, has been very important for his walk in life that brings it to him now, where we're at now. And the other part is, it wasn't until he was under hypnosis and was able to have that come up. So if you think about it, if you want to put information into a computer, often you will hide it in the computer, and it's not easily obtained. It's hidden in plain sight, but you can't get to it unless you know the keys to get to that piece of information, that information file. A lot of interesting reasons that could happen. I don't know if you've ever, it's a movie that I recently watched where they actually wipe the memory of this man. He doesn't know that he's volunteered for this, but they use him in plastic surgery to smoke out a group of people that are basically selling out our secrets. And he was brought into this, but to make it work, they had to bring this man to the absolute point of near insanity and make him think that he was somebody else and he had amnesia. And they had to really do things to him with medicines and chemicals to force this to come out. And the whole reason he was being played was to catch these other people that he didn't know, but it smoked out all the other conspirators that were in this. And the guy that ran it, George Papard's the lead actor. He's kind of the lead investigator who sets this all up. He's ruthless on this. He said, look, you don't remember, but I had to have you with no memory because I had to have the ability to get these people. And it was the only way I was going to get it. And you volunteered. I can't prove it to you that you volunteered because you can't remember, but you did. And that's what I did. And I would do it again because protecting the country. And if you go back to what Bill was talking about, the first book that he talked about, we can convince ourselves, any nation can convince itself that we can do any terrible thing in the name of national security. And we have done a lot of bad, terrible things in the name of national security.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is we do not have a moral compass as a group of people on this planet much anymore. Now, Dan's still in the profession of trying to help us align that compass, or as we say in airplane speak, swing that compass to get it accurate. And some of us try to keep our compass accurate, but it's not a common thing anymore that we're working with. And you can convince yourself to do a lot of things in the name of the quote unquote word of national security. That goes right back to the bedrock of what we saw with the Manhattan Project. People put in mental institutions because they found out information. It was a security risk. And I think that almost is a comforting thing that they try to tell people when you read it in somewhat documented, somewhat fictional books where, the person found out or they threatened and they were committed. I would think that is a lot of people who no longer have their lives because other people said they're a risk. But the Manhattan Project, and try to protect that because we thought that was the ultimate secret. And we did a lot of things in the name of that in a compartment. And that's what I think is happening with us with the UFO UAP.
Commander, let me just piggyback on that a little bit because I read and I heard this. I don't know if I heard it from television, but it kind of sticks to what you're saying is, see, the intelligence agencies, people think that they're some kind of law enforcement, and intelligence agencies are not law enforcement. They don't have to play by the same rules that we think the FBI has to play by or regular police departments. Their only concern is to steal secrets.
Well, I don't mean to smirk. I don't think the FBI up until recently was playing by a lot of rule books either. And if you go back to the founding with Mr. Hoover.
Okay, you got me there. I mean,
real activities and things that he was interested in his off time.
All right.
But I'm not. Look, I'm going to jump on. One of the things that drove me nuts in the world of counterterrorism ops that I was involved in is that for a lot of administrations, we played that particular mission as a law enforcement mission, and it was a complete waste of time. I don't know how else to put that. I don't want even to go off on a tangent, but it's absolutely nuts that you have people that are willing to use suicide vests, dirty bombs, and we're going to somehow prosecute them and then put them into a prison situation with people that ultimately would say I think we can rehabilitate these people. I'm sorry, but that is you're in a military context.
And you're actually making the point I'm trying to say is that the intelligence agencies, and I'll include the FBI now, that they don't play by the rules. They don't play by law or constitution or thing. Their sole job is the secrets, kill people if they have to do whatever they have to do in the name of national security. And that is something that we have to realize that that's what they do. We don't have to like it. We might think it's wrong, but in the world the way it is nowadays, you can't play by law enforcement rules when you're dealing with terrorists. Am I right on that, Commander?
You are, and I'm sorry, I got noise in the background that I can't get to. Let me go one step further. In the intel world, you're mostly accurate, but you're not completely accurate. There are actually rules. There are actually stipulations and conducts that are put down on paper. Usually something under the presidential order or presidential inquiry, something is signed. Or there is a get out of jail card that says you do whatever you have to by the authority of the commander-in-chief to go do these things. Okay. So, and I bring that up because that has a direct relationship to the UFO, UAP investigations and the rest of the stuff that's going on around us. So you have people and compartments that have the authority a little, well, in their minds, probably just below God, but they have the authority to go do this in the name of whatever. And they are doing whatever because that's what they've been charged to do. And there are certain personality types that will respond to that situation. I think you all understand what I'm alluding to.
Oh, yeah.
So we do need those people doing that kind of work. There's just no question about it. There is absolutely no question about it. I had friends that were Green Berets, and they were a part of a reconnaissance unit, and they spent most of their time in Africa. Now you say to yourself, well, what were they doing in Africa? Every time something went wrong with biological warfare, these gentlemen would be inserted to go and try to recover and take samples of people that have been afflicted by some kind of disease, man-made or naturally occurring. One was to find out if the enemy or enemies of this country were doing it, or if it occurred in nature, and what was the whole reason that we're doing it. To figure out if it could be weaponized, and then figure out what the counter to it could be, to come up with the kind of inoculation. There's Fort Detrick is a major center for that kind of warfare, and it's warfare. You need people that are willing and are able to go do that kind of work.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing is happening in the UFO UAP. Anything can be a threat. The assessment has to be made.
I think you mentioned once before, one of the reasons why we don't have disclosure in some respects is because we may have reverse technology that we don't want people to know about. We might, disseminate that in the wrong way, where if we do have anti-gravity or cloaking devices or teleportation or whatever that we've recovered from crash UFOs, you certainly don't want the Chinese to get their hands on it. We certainly don't want the Russians to get their hands on it.
Let me jump in real quick on two things you're saying there. I completely agree. And let's be honest, we have a lot of people that have sold this country out and sold our technology out. Is it any wonder that we have an airplane and then a year to 2 years later, our friends at the PRC or back in the old days, the Russians, then Soviets, all have a plane that looks almost exactly like it show up? Well, that isn't because they're really, really good at the intel grabbing. They meet a lot of people who will sell a secret for money. It's just that simple. So that's happening. So if you have this ultimate technology, this alien harvested technology, this reversed engineered breakthrough, you're going to protect that. Something up there with the Ark of the Covenant kind of situation is where you're going to go with that. So I think that that's an important part. The other part is this. I am convinced we may have done some things as a global presence on this planet of making deals with each other, making deals possibly with other extraterrestrial visitors, that we get something and we give them something to get that something. And if those deals have been made and that comes out, that rocks the house of power. And that's ultimately, I think, always going to be the problem. Now, the Padre and I will tell you that's because the great deceiver, Satan, is more than happy to push that agenda along. It fits in my world. It fits in my worldview. But I see a lot of conduct where you've done something wrong, and instead of owning up, you're going to cover up. And then the cover up becomes even worse and more onerous than what the initial crime was. And I hate to keep kicking the Bible, but if you go to the Bible, that first couple chapters there in the first book, there's a lot of that going on. Yep. Who, me? No. She was talking to that snake, not me. She tricked me.
Always say, deny.
Commander, do you have a book to share with us?
I have three books for tonight. Bill, can we bring up the Frank Edwards UFO Serious Business? This is a bit of an ode to my father.
Earth to Bill.
Well, he may not be there. Hopefully, when he gets back, we can pop
up. Hold on, I'll try to pull it up for you, Commander. If he's got
it's the Frank Edwards books, UFO Serious Business.
No,
that's going to come up. There we go. Flying Saucer Serious Business. I throw this book up because this was probably my first real introduction into this. As a young guy growing up, my dad was fabulously enthralled in the UFO criteria of things that are going on and have been going on. And he had every magazine and countless books. So I grew up in a household of two traditional Catholics, and they still are, that did not have they didn't have a problem having this as a discussion point. It wasn't incompatible with their faith, or was it incompatible with discussion? Now, we had a lot of events here in the greater New England area as I was growing up, of UFO activities. I remember going up to Exeter, going up to Franconia Notch, where the Hills had their experience. But that book, although kind of a pulpy paperback, if you notice, you guys looked at it, it was 75 cents. That book had a lot of interesting approaches to it. And I tell a lot of people, I would give anything to have the original paperback copy that my dad had. It's long since been lost to the tide of time in my household. I only have about 300, 400 books behind me where I'm doing the show from tonight, and stuffed into my little office here. Not all of them UFO, obviously. But my point is, its approach kind of set a tone that this needs to be looked at from a very serious kind of way. You know, let's not have the little green men kind of conversation. What's going on with this? Why are they here? What's happening? Why are these things happening near our nuclear facilities? Why is this happening? And ultimately, although I don't think Mr. Edwards really comes out and says it, because I think he wanted the book to be published, and I think things were much different in those days to pull it off in the 60s. What's the government doing? And he alludes to that in that book. So I found it to be a very interesting first real book. And around, someone probably in their early double digits, I'd say probably 12 or 13 when I really probably tore into that book. It was a pretty interesting read, and it got me very, very interested because it took away some of the veneer of the more silliness that I think that surrounded it. And I mean silly in that, what you're talking about, if you guys remember Ghostbusters 2, when he interviews the woman on his talk show in the beginning, Dr. Venkman, and she goes, well, you had an alien encounter. Yes. And where did this happen? In the Holiday Inn bar in Paramus. Really, what happened? Well, we were having drinks, and then he took me to his ship, which looked exactly like a hotel room at the Holiday Inn. So, thoughts on that book, gentlemen?
Wow.
It sounds interesting. It really does. But what year was that written? Do you remember?
Oh, it's got to be something from the early 60s, because that book, that ran around the house for a number of years before I really seriously read it.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions from the chat. I don't know if you want to answer them now, Padre, or what you want to do.
Sure. Go ahead. Throw some up there.
I like this one. That's an interesting one for the group to answer. It goes, I'm not disparaging anyone, but I just can't buy mass abductions and would tend to believe there's a psychological condition affecting these people rather than aliens. Well, Rick, well, Commander, what do you think about this?
I mean, I think it's a fair way to approach this, because it seems to me that these things, someone says, "Oh, I've had this experience," and then everybody else is having that same experience. There have been countless cases where well-intentioned, and I say sometimes in malfeasance, especially in the area of child abuse, where people have gone in, therapists have gone in with investigators as part of it, and they have tried to, under hypnosis, under medically induced hypnosis, try to get evidence and try to get descriptions of what had happened. And then it come to find out it didn't happen. People went to prison over this kind of thing. There was countless scandals that went through in the 80s and 90s because it became this thing. Every child, because I had young children in those days. My kids are grown now, but that's all you heard about, because my antenna was tuned to that. These childcare, daycare facilities, these terrible things were going on. And I'm not going to say that hasn't happened. Obviously, we know that has happened. But there was these phenomena come up. It's I have people in my sphere, people in my life that are practicing Wiccans, and they are completely turned off by this whole witchcraft craze that's going on. All these people that are claiming that they're white witches now, because it's like the in thing that's going on. I think this happened in the abduction part. I think for things like what Travis went through and other ones, our friends there at the 411? Am I saying that series of books right? Then I always forget the number. It's one of the most famous series of books and movies and videos are out. You're both looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. The 440.
No, I'm just listening.
Yeah, but help me. I'm trying. The 444. It begins with it's 400. It's one of the most famous abduction cases contributed to Alien series that's out there. I can't think of the name of the author and the research.
Taken? Are you talking about Taken?
Taken. Yeah. But there's a number
Oh.
that's associated with that. I'll find it when we we're headed towards the break. I'll dig it up. And the only reason I bring it up is because I tried to always get an interview and I could never get past the initial layer of people that are there. But well done scholarship, well done investigation. I think that there is a shell casing around it that people are attracted to that. They're attracted to what is being said there, and they assimilate that they have had this experience.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have had.
And I think there are core people that have had the experience that have happened. I think it's a fair filter that Rick puts out to approach some of this. I think you have to be skeptical. It doesn't mean you're not sympathetic. It doesn't mean that you're not empathetic to what is going on. But I have to say, Rick, I've been to a couple conferences where they've had people that have formed groups to do nothing but help these people who make this claim. And these people that I've met are not there because of fame or fortune. They really believe this has happened to them. And talking with them,
oh yeah,
I am convinced that they have experienced something. So
just don't know what it is.
Right.
Yeah. My views on these is recently evolved on that. And once upon a time, I was convinced that they were entirely demonic. But after reading a couple books myself, I'm changing that. Did you have one more book that you wanted to cover, Commander?
I have two more. I just want to thank Gondolf in the chat. Yes, Missing 411, David Pilates. I knew it was there, and because I didn't have a great experience trying to penetrate to get David or someone high up in the organization. Not that Commander Cobra is not used to rejection. I'm very happy that I've grown used to that. But so the next book, if you don't mind bringing up, is Mac Maloney's book, UFOs in Wartime. There's two books in this. Everyone, you guys know that Mac Maloney, longtime associate and friend. He's written an incredible body of fiction, but these were his nonfiction books. And if anyone is interested in this subject, in this particular event, UFOs in wartime is an amazing thesis to explore, because we are probably at our most terrible and best in that type of human endeavor. And we seem to have, when you go back to this, numerous events that are recorded. Obviously, the famous Foo Fighters of World War II. There's even a claim early on in World War I where a German Volker describes that he had knocked down a UFO during World War I. These events and around wartime are, to me, very compelling, because you have lots of people that are trained. You have a high intensity amount of activity going on. So you have many eyeballs, literally, as well as new breakthrough technologies, radio, radar, sonar, all these things that are going on. And there's collections of things that don't fit what you're expecting to fit. So there's not a preconceived notion. And we all talk about that there seems to be an uptick. I'm not convinced that this is true, but there seems to be a conventional wisdom. There was an uptick of UFO, UAP after Hiroshima, and then the detonation of testing of atomic and then nuclear weapons after that. That we sent a signal out that, well, that tribe of hairless apes is working their way up the technological line. Maybe we need to check in.
Yeah, Jim Mars always said that the kids got the matches.
Yeah, kids got the matches, and they're distilling gasoline, so probably need to check in just a little bit more often what's going on. So, great work as far as I'm concerned with on Mac's part there. Great books to pick up online as well as the hand copy. I tend to be someone who likes to hold the reading item in my hand, but really, really good stuff. That it takes, I think, his kind of approach where he has really written a lot of great technological science fiction kind of stuff in there. To have that kind of, not so much vocabulary, but that kind of attitude, and then really discipline it to go in and do a nonfiction cut. So well worth picking up if you haven't read them.
Commander,
how far back does he go?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Padre.
How far back do we go back to the Peloponnesian Wars, or?
No, it's mainly wars from the 19th and 20th century start that goes in there. And of course, the really big focus is going to be in there. I think there's one more, there's actually should be two more books. Can you jump into 50 Shades of Gray's? Ray's book. Yeah, you're gonna love it. This guy's an absolute gem. I actually got to do an interview with him. Is it in there?
No, that's rules of disclosure. 50 Shades. No, not that.
No, not Aztec. That's my last one. Maybe it's not in there. I thought there was another one in there. Well, I'll pull up Ray stuff. He's done a series of books. I went to the Air Force Museum 3-4 years ago at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and they had a whole, in fact, I talked about it on the show, they have a whole wall of UFO stuff. Books and little UFO models and little UFO signs. And I mean, obviously, capitalism is king, right? I mean, it's something that sells, but Wright-Pat, with its somewhat mythological connection to all of this. This is where it all ends up. Well, this guy was an engineer at Wright-Pat, and he is really interested in the subject, and he takes an engineer's approach. He's put out 3 or 4 books in his series, and it's just an absolute tremendous. But this first one, 50 Shades of Grey, obviously a little takeoff on a very popular book and movie that was out there. And he takes him on his trip that he took up into New Hampshire to look at famous events that have occurred for UFO activity with Exeter and all those, as well as this little cemetery area that's on the base that he went to, where he has someone that kind of has a Men in Black kind of approach that meets him there, talking about when he was working in morale, welfare, and recreation. They were going to do a Roswell movie kind of night thing, and it was all going to happen, and then it just didn't get authorized at the last minute. It's a great book, and all his books have been fantastic because he really gets into serious. One of his last ones is Swamp Gas My Ass. And that one, he actually talks to the two pilots that flew F-106s, the Delta Dart, and intercepted over Lake Michigan a UFO. Now, he takes you all the way career-wise, and the lead pilot was still alive. He's an older gentleman, obviously, and he gets that, and this guy explains it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's extraterrestrial or not, but I got sent out. It was a real live intercept. We had live missiles on board that aircraft. 50 Shades of Grace. Thank you. There's the book. That's the first one in the series. And I got to tell you, Ray is absolutely tremendous to talk with. He's been a lot of fun conversations with him. I need to get him on the show with us one night. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And you just got there's Swamp Gas My Ass. Simsmansky, good Italian, maybe Polish. I don't know. It could be either. That's a joke. It's obviously Polish.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are really stiff tonight. I mean, I'm looking for a little ching, and I'm getting nothing.
Ching. Your jokes have to orbit a couple times before they land.
I get that. I get that a lot, in fact.
Patrick told me that they weren't funny.
Well, that's also a fair estimate as well. But coming from the Padre, you got to be really cautious with what's funny and what's not funny. Oh, like the joke here. I think I told you guys this joke, right? So this man says he wants to take the money with him when he dies, and he's approaching death. So he brings in his minister, his doctor, and his lawyer. And he says, look, I'm going to try to take the money with me. Not all of it, but I want to take this sum. So I'm giving you each $30,000. And what I want you to do, take these checks, cash them, put the money in an envelope, and slide that money into the casket before they put me in the ground. I think I'm going to work this out. So they all look at each other. They take their checks. They leave, and they're there. And he's been put in the ground, and the dirt's being thrown over, and they're standing there, the last three there. And the doctor goes, look, I got to tell you guys something. I didn't put the whole 30,000 in there, and I needed 20,000 for this thing that I'm doing at my clinic, and I thought this was a better way to honor. I spent that money on this new equipment for the medical clinic. And then the minister, he kind of gets a bad look in his face, and he goes, well, we had some major repairs at the church, and I put an IOU, and I said a prayer, and I kept 15,000 of it to make this repair at the church. I'm putting a plaque up, in the memory of our dear friend. And the lawyer, he's over there, and he's got his arms folded, and he's just looking at the two of them. And he's got this disgusted look, and he says, I know what you two did, because I checked the money. I checked the envelopes. When I put a cashier's check in there for the total amount and took the money that you guys put in that casket. So he put a cashier's check in.
Yeah.
He didn't leave the cash, and he took the money that they had left in the envelopes, and he didn't put his 30,000 in. Okay. Are we close to a break? My God, I hope so, because I'm falling flat here. I'm falling flat here, boys and girls. Falling flat.
Well, I mean, in the humor end, I told my wife I wanted to be cremated, and she made an appointment for next Tuesday.
There you go. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And I thought I was bad showing you female aliens. Holy crap.
Well, you just opened it up. That's all you did there, Chris. That's all you did.
Well, I mean, speaking of caskets, did you hear about the new transparent caskets? Do you think they'll catch on? Remains to be seen.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Okay.
As a pastor, I have to have a few of these in the magazine.
Here's the one that you need to use in church. The next one you're going to go. So a priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into a blood drive, and the nurse looks at these three when they walks in, and zeroes right in on the rabbit, says, "Come with me." And she takes the rabbit into the back room and she goes, "Okay, what's your blood type?" And the rabbit, looking kind of nervous, and says, "I think I'm a typo." Because it's usually a priest, a rabbi, and a minister. Get it? It's a typo. I am typo. Oh, come on. That's a great dad joke. Are you kidding me?
Folks, we're going to take a break here. Hopefully.
Yeah. Seriously, it is time for us to take a break. Tune in for more outstanding adventures in literature and doubtlessly some additional humor coming up in our second hour of UAP Crossfire.
They may be their dirty jokes on the second hour. Who knows? Let's see how far we can push Padre.
Back in about 2 minutes, folks. Stay with us.
Hold on to your seats, Cosmic Explorers. KGRA Digital Broadcasting, the unrivaled #1 source for raw, uncensored paranormal and UFO talk radio, has just unleashed a sizzling online merch store. Stay cosmic on the move with accessories, rugged phone cases, vibrant yoga mats, and notebooks perfect for jotting down UFO sightings. Ignite your obsession with the unexplained through bold, exclusive gear that demands attention. Kicking off with the Supernova, the store launches 2 heart-pounding collections, KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Bishop James Law. Every item you grab helps power the network and its groundbreaking shows. Stand with the truth seekers. Act fast, score your stellar swag, and join the uprising today.
So you don't care about his life. You just care about covering up your little top secret stuff going on. Meanwhile, this man's dying. How dare you put these people in the military to defend us, and then when they come out, you just kick them to the curb.
MUFON is the voice of thousands of like-minded people who want to see change. We speak up against UFO secrecy. We engage governments and agencies around the world on the topic. We share information with the public through our journal, website, newsletter, social media, and even our own TV channel. When you join MUFON, you add your voice to the cause. Few things are more important in our time than understanding the UFO question. Join MUFON. Find your friends.
Welcome back to UAP Crossfire. Dan Carlson with you, along with Chris DiPerno and Commander Cobra. It's our book club night, and we're running through the titles that we've read that have meant a significant, had significant meaning to us in the UFO UAP arena. Chris, did you have another one that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I do have another one. It's called Silent Invasion. And I like this book because it has a lot to do with New York, particularly the Pine Bush area. And it gets into exactly what has been happening in the past in the Pine Bush area. It goes into the famous boomerang sighting. There was an unbelievable boomerang sighting in Pine Bush where people, I mean, it was a mass sighting. It was during...
there was numerous
rush hour. Do you remember that, Commander?
Yeah, and there was numerous repeats of that.
Right, and women and men who were driving down the highway saw it was very low flying. A lot of people don't tell you that this thing was actually hovering over cars. It would come down very low and slow and then start to hover over a car. So as the car was driving, it would actually match the speed and be right on top. And of course, it was silent. The only thing that it had multiple lights on it, where people thought it was an airplane at first, but it was so close when they looked up that they knew it was not a plane. And it was so bad, as Commander said, there was multiple sightings. It was so bad that the town actually put an ordinance in that you're not allowed to stop on the highway and look at the UFOs. And I thought that was rather funny because, I mean, I've never heard of any place do it, but they literally had to do that because of the enormous amount of sightings that they had there. But I was lucky enough that there was a landing that took place in Pine Bush, and I got down there to be able to kind of look at the area. And we, and I probably mentioned this on the show before, but we couldn't figure out why this particular place was getting a lot of sightings and a lot of landings. And come to find out that DuPont, years before this, had developed and built a nuclear reactor within the mountain in Pine Bush that nobody knew about. The only way I found out about it is that I went to the Historical Society, and I happened to meet the person running the Historical Society there, and I started telling her where I'm here. I'm trying to do some research on UFOs. She says, well, we don't have anything on UFOs. I go, well, I told her, I said, well, we're trying to figure out why we get so many sightings in this area. And she kind of goes, well, what was built there. We're not really supposed to talk about it. I go, what was that? Well, DuPont built a nuclear reactor in the side of a mountain, actually in the mountain. But unbeknownst to anybody, the nuclear reactor leaked and it got into the reservoir system. And there was a big thing about how they're going to take the leakage out, how contaminated is the water, who's got contaminated, how do we transport the dirt and everything, because obviously they were scared of people driving by or walking their dog or jogging by these trucks that they were going to have to fill to see if they were going to get radiated. And of course, they had to worry about the drivers driving the truck. So there was a huge thing about this. And then all of a sudden, we started getting mass sightings down there, a few landings right outside of Tuxedo Park. The reactor was built just outside of Tuxedo Park, the village there. And so
it's actually quite a beautiful place
to investigate it. What's that, Commander?
I think it's a beautiful place.
It's gorgeous.
Around that lake is absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic area. But the thing is that the radiation, they said, well, the water's fine to drink. We tested it and it's okay. The reservoir is okay. And, people just kind of hushed up about it and never really talked about it. And Linda Zimmerman and I found out all kinds of incredible things about Tuxedo Park and the sightings. There's a huge history of supernatural stuff in the Pine Bush area. And that's basically what Silent Invasion talks about. Talks about the abductions that have taken down there that nobody wants to talk about. They really are closed-minded, or not closed-minded, but closed-mouthed about the abductions that have taken place there, the landings that have taken place there, just the whole history of all kinds of things that have happened, Bigfoot sightings there. And so as you go down that rabbit hole, you find more and more the military base there. There's a military base right there that's now an airport and stuff, but supposedly there was nuclear missiles there outside, Nike missiles that were supposed to be protecting New York City, that were right in that area of Pine Bush, Saugerties, and the areas like that. So there's a whole history that the book explains about that. And it also goes into, and this is something I really think that this is a possibility that we don't know how vast this is, but we've always talked about the hybridization project. People having, their sperm or their eggs and stuff taken and create hybrid babies. And the more you go down this rabbit hole, especially with Silent Invasion and some of the others, come to find out that there's a great possibility that who's ever here is tinkering with our genetics and possibly trying to make a new creation. So that's something that we really have to start seriously looking at, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that will lead me into the subject matter of one of the books that I'm going to recommend. It's called Birthright. It's by Timothy Alberino. There's the cover of it. It's on Amazon, been out just a couple of years. The Coming Post-Human Apocalypse and the Usurpation of Adam's Dominion on Planet Earth. This book I found fascinating and profoundly disturbing. It forced me to re-examine some of my own theories, but he does such a superb job of tying so many elements of the phenomena together, along with texts from the Bible, other ancient texts. Timothy Alberino, if you don't know who he is, you can look him up on Google, his website. He's literally the modern Indiana Jones, right down to the leather jacket and the fedora. And he's traveled around the country doing archaeology. He's been part of some major excavations, some astonishing finds. He's personally examined those mummies down in Peru. He has looked at some ancient Sumerian sites and some of the ancient texts associated with those. And he has put together a scenario that places our planet in the middle of the war between good and evil, the current battleground in the solar system. And he says that this originated back even before the creation of Earth. Because if you look at the first few verses of Genesis, it says that the earth was formless and void. So Earth was already here, and it was just uninhabitable. And then God spoke into the darkness, said, "Let there be light," and the creation process began. He says that the forces of darkness versus the forces of God, and he calls the forces of darkness as being led by the dragon of Revelation. It goes by other names, Satan, Beelzebub, and so forth. But the idea being that this interplanetary war that involved other sentient and intelligent spacefaring species actually blew up a planet in our own solar system to create the asteroid belt. He believes that there at one time was civilization on Mars, and there may still be underground bases there. And that's one of his more far-fetched, I think, ideas. Though, as he goes on, you start thinking, well, maybe that's not so far-fetched. But that we are in the midst of a war that has as its goal on the bad guy's side the eradication of the human race, which we are members of, replacing it with an alien hybrid race that also merges technology. And so he's looking at the confluence of AI along with the violent stuff that's going on in the world that is prophesied in the Bible is coming to a head at the end time. And while he doesn't have a name for it or designate who it is, this core group of very powerful people on our planet who are infiltrated by hybrids and moving Earth toward its climax as prophesied in the Bible. But he goes through and explains, and I wish Don were here because he'd love this, how the Anunnaki fit into this, how when we look at the names of ancient so-called gods, little g gods, they're all connected, all related, and we're likely part of an advanced spacefaring race. God, in the midst of all this, is going to recreate the planet Earth to be a habitable planet, and that's where Genesis begins. And he creates these beings called humans in his own image. He makes the case in the book that we are the only sentient species that is made in the image of God, which makes us unique, and apparently has really pissed off a lot of the other so-called alien races, several of which are working for the dragon or Satan, whether they know it or not. And the end goal is to eradicate the image of God from the earth and replace humans with these other beings that turn out to be genetically enhanced and hybrid humans. And he has several good cases to indicate that the hybridization process has had substantial success through the alien abduction program, as we were talking earlier, that it largely involves genealogy and generational abductions that have been going on since the Garden of Eden, trying to perfect this hybrid race. And they'll take it generation to generation to utilize the same genetic material. And they've got their controls and so forth. But that's the general premise of the book. And there's a whole lot more in it, a whole lot more interesting that I could share. But what are your thoughts on that, Commander?
Well, I can't wait to read this book since you and I were talking about it. And I obviously, I can't say that I agree with everything that's put there, but I love the scholarship because it's based on observation, it's based on evidence and explaining the theory, how it connects. And that all fits to me very much in there. There's nothing in that part, there's nothing that you said that I can't rationalize. Well, that makes a lot of sense based on not from a religious or a spiritual point, but just looking at the records that we have, the different, starting of course with the Christian Judeo Bible, but there's other Hindu texts that this seems to be well documented, and then you can find physical evidence, and from the benefit of being around all of you, especially Don, on the subject of this ancient incursion or this excursion that occurs. Again, it fits. Now, that's good, and it fits. And then you have people like the good doctor here who gets into taking some real observation, some real measurement, and it works. And then he puts his supposition in that, and he explains why he's making that conclusion.
Yeah,
I like that whole approach. I also like books that are really readable on that. Books that, and it's obvious with your busy schedule, anything that engages you on that valuable time slot that you have, that you're not going, this is crap. I mean, and we've talked about that we've picked up stuff.
Yep.
I'm not reading any more of this. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like LA stuff. I mean, I can't put his stuff down.
Yeah.
I can't, when I put a video on, I cannot just, okay, I'm not watching this. I can't, I force myself to put other things aside because it's well done. Doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it. Right. I mean, it's just, that's what's out there. And I like to get to that wheat and separate some of the chaff. And I mean, we could do this kind of a show every month. The books from the past, the books that are out there. My God, if we ever get into the video and the stuff that's out there that people, the documentaries and I won't say mockumentaries, but the kind of where they're mixing a little bit of documentary and some supposition in there. There's tons of stuff out there, but I can't wait to read that book because it tells me that somebody's really answering my heart and my brain. I want that kind of comparison. I want that kind of stuff to push through. I've told you guys this before. All that time I spent in Iraq, and here I am, and I am living and working at one point of my time there, very close to Mount Sinjar, where in the old book, First Testament, Old Testament, in the Jewish records, as well as what predates the Muslim records, this is where Satan lands when he's cast from heaven, is Mount Sinjar. I actually had an interesting evening with two NSA guys in the back of the airplane as we were doing some work up there. That part of the world, Iraq, Turkey, and Iran all get very, very close to each other, and Syria. So it's a pretty interesting neck of the neighborhoods. They're all coming in pretty close, and obviously a lot of kind of intelligence work that's being done there. And we're flying, at night, doing our duties, and we're over Mount Sinjar, and NSA guy, one in the back, he goes, "Do you know what that is?" And I told him, and he was just shocked. That some shaved monkey that's flying this aircraft around would have a clue, because he was all excited about that. And it is, to this day, a site of really amazing things. I've talked about this years back, when all the backlash and things were going on and ISIS rose to power. They were killing people left and right, especially Christians that live in that part of it. There was an incredible persecution to death and some of the most ancient Christians on the planet there. And it was a Muslim helicopter pilot that was saving most of it, because they went to Mount Sinjar and they were barricading themselves on the top part of the mountain. This guy's flying an old Russian helicopter, and he risked his life till he was killed, flying these people off to safety from the top of the mountain to try to save their lives. It's an amazing modern story of what goes on. And again, all this stuff crosses, intersects, and it comes back to this. So when I see a book like what Dan's talking about and others like this, I am compelled to want to know more about it.
Chris?
I don't know. That was an amazing story, Commander. I really enjoyed that. I actually have a question for you, but I want to just address this hybridization that you talked about, Dan. Hybridization has been through our history, and we really don't realize it. We think it's a modern day thing, but it's not. We talk, there's always talk about the Anunnakis taking our species and hybridizing that to genetically make a new thing. We talk about the Nephilims, the watchers that came down, God's angels that came down and decided to bed with women and created a whole race of giants that turned into cannibals. So it's not something that's a modern thing. And if we tend to believe the Bible and stuff like that, we have to address the idea that it's still happening today. And it could be for very much nefarious reasons. Now, I believe it's nefarious reasons, and I just go by, here's a very intelligent race that wants to hybridize or change, manipulate, however way you want to word it. But they do it on a very sneaky, very evil way. They don't come down and say, "Hey, listen," or they can come down and say, "Hey, we would like to make us better by blending with you," or "We need this." It's always done in a very nefarious way. We kidnap people. They kidnap people. They extract stuff without them being asked. So they don't think much of us. They think of us probably like ants, as this phenomenon grows, where they could care less what we think, if we feel pain, if we feel sorrow, if we become emotionally distressed by what has happened to this, rather than being upfront and saying, "Listen, do you want to volunteer for this type of situation where you know what you're getting into?" It's almost like a doctor coming in and say, "Hey, this is you. this is a surgery we can or don't have to perform, but we really should. And here's your options. And you make the decision. Well, there's no decision in this. You're abducted. You're abducted in the middle of the night. You're taken without your consent. You're being put in a very traumatic way into this. So this hybridization process has been done throughout our history in different ways. So I don't think this is going to stop. I think, the books that we read on this type of stuff will only become more popular as there has to be some kind of breakout that people start looking at this phenomenon. But once that happens, then I think you'll see people starting to research it, write about it more, and do it. And I just want to answer that one question about modern abduction reports. Gandalf has said, resemble old school 60s, 70s. No. And I'll tell you the reason why is because we've become so much better at how we present ourselves and how we research an abduction. So it's not the same, the old school to the 60s and 70 cases. We've advanced our way of researching this and kind of got an idea what to ask to legitimize the abduction the best we can.
Well, my second book, and I want to
Well,
go to
Dan,
that
before
now
you jump, just give me one quick second. We still don't know about Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon. And then the last year, there has been a really interesting discussion that Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon were cohabitating, maybe interbreeding, species development. So that is interesting. And I mean, that's really kind of separate from everything that we're talking about. But I point it out because a lot of times what we do in our modern interpretation of science is, well, that doesn't fit what I want to look at. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to move on to something that I want to talk about. And that's not really good science or scientific approach. No. The other thing is this, we talk about this somewhat nefarious ET dropping in, to get lucky or to, do a little biological collection. Look at the crap we're doing ourselves. Now, some of it is unbelievably good stuff. I mean, I think it's unbelievably great stuff that we're now able to, in vitro, detect and correct birth defects in children. But in a lot of the medical work that we do, the advances we did is on a pile of suffering and not such great stuff that got us to that point.
Good point.
It's so if we're going to lay it on our ET visitors that, maybe don't have the best intentions, or they're at the intergalactic bar and everyone's looking at Earth and, well, it's getting close to closing time. So, this is where we're at. I told you it was going to get a little bit frothy there, Padre. So you can forgive me. We'll do absolution off the air when we're done with this. But we do a lot of stuff on our own as well. But if you go back to birthright, that's part of what's written into the DNA, literally and figuratively. This is the battle. This is what we're up against. And we can have visitors that are tapping on both sides of the good and the bad part of this. So I throw that out there just as some other real world parts and pieces that are going on.
All right. So you made me think about something, Commander. So
I always sleep better when we have a show and you tell me that I made you think about something. That is phenomenal.
Thank you for those wonderful, kind words. Anyways, Padre, let me ask you this. So we have this hybridization process, and we create a child scientifically rather than God's way of creation. Is it soulless?
My view on that would be, if it is a human life that is the result of genetic materials from a human male and a human female, yes, it has a soul. It doesn't have the benefit of growing in a womb, of which there are many benefits we know from communication that takes place between the mother and the child in the womb, even the father. But there's no reason I can see to say that that individual would not have a soul. But see, here's what Mr. Alberino says in his book Birthright. The strategy of Satan. I mean, he's read the Bible. He knows it better than any of us.
Well, he
And
does have
he
quite a
knows
few featured parts.
he does.
He
And
had a good agent, no
he's
doubt about it.
he's read the ending and he's not fond of it. And the only way that he sees that he can change that ending, or he thinks he can, is if he does away with the human race. And what he can't accomplish through annihilation, like he's tried to do for the countless wars over the eons, if he can breed out the image of God from humanity, then there's no reason for Christ to return and collect his followers, because there won't be any left. And so what his hypothesis is this genetic engineering program. And he does mention some of the bizarre experiments that humans are doing, and how you can go online and buy something called a CRISPR and mess with your own genetics in your garage or on your porch and come up with things, because it's not regulated. We're playing with fire here, and that you would come to a point where these chips that are being developed that will initially be extremely appealing, because you might be able to put a chip in your body and it enhances you in some way. We know that the military is conducting experiments to do a super soldier or an enhanced human soldier. And it's just taking the existing attributes and finding ways to amplify them, force multipliers, if you will.
Sure.
But then let's say it progresses to the next level, where we have this chip system that you can plug into, like the Matrix, and suddenly create your own reality and live in that reality if you wish to, or have all of the knowledge accumulated in humanity downloaded in a moment into your brain, unlocking the petabytes of storage data that we have there that aren't being used, and combining that with genetic manipulation that makes us immune to all diseases. But genetically, you're no longer human. How many people do you think would run to that technology where you're suddenly all-knowing? You can live for hundreds of years because you're immune to all diseases. You can have superhuman strength, superhuman speed, like a Marvel hero, but it costs you your soul. Thoughts?
Well, if you condition that your populace that God doesn't exist, that this is the highest expression of what's going on. Right. This whole soul thing is a nice fun notion. That's an easy leap. I mean, that's not hard to believe, or hard to accept or be interested in. So it doesn't seem all that surprising or difficult to me. And I'm sure for many people, and again, this is not to set any kind of an adversarial. My notions of the universe, its creation, an all-seeing entity that put this all together is quite quaint, if that's even the word that they would use. So I get that, and I get the part of it. We do this over and over again. We thought when we split the atom, nobody else was going to split the atom. We thought we weren't going to ever fight another war again because we had all the power and nobody else did. And then we got a rude awakening 2-3 years later. Our great security didn't work. We had traitors that provided that information. And all of a sudden now we're caught up in a world. I'm watching it with AI. Right now, in the world of economics, AI is faltering so badly. There's talking about a bubble. Oh, don't I love bubbles? 2008.
Yeah.
The dot-com bubble. Well, that was what?
Yes.
Late 90s, early 2000s, someplace in there.
October of that.
That was the 2008 was the junk bond craziness that we did. But we had the
housing crash in 2008.
Yeah, the housing, that was housing, and all the junk bond business we did there with mortgages and all that kind of stuff. But we had a dot-com before that, where people would walk in and they'd say, hey, I've got this great idea for a dot-com, whatever it was, and instantly they had 30, 40, $50 million in investment, when 30, 40, $50 million really meant something. That's rapidly not being the same impact that it once had. And now we have this thing with AI driving up electrical prices to the heavens. Yes. Because they're trying to figure out how to make these data centers, because we convinced us all this money, companies that are huge amounts of money, mortgaging all that money in the multiple trillions, trying to figure out how they're going to build the infrastructure to make the electricity to physically run these facilities. And they're faltering right now.
Yep.
And if that falter goes, that's going to be once again someone pulling the plug in the bathtub, and we're going to have that great big vortex that's going to pull a lot of stuff down before somebody gets the plug in. All I'm saying is, we do this and we repeat this cycle. History doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. Mark Twain. And we're getting ready for a big rhyme.
Exactly. And that's what Mr. Alberino says. He says that we are going to come to a crisis point, and he thinks it's going to be soon.
I think we're there now.
Well, yeah. Well, no, you haven't seen nothing yet. But this point is going to come where there will be an alien intervention in the form of the Space Brothers showing up here on the planet and saying, okay, back off. We've got to help you here. And here's the deal. We'll help you perfect AI. We'll help you perfect these chips that'll make you live for hundreds of years and make you disease-free. We'll introduce some of our genetic material into you, garnered from years of experimentation over the eons with your species, and help you evolve to your next level to attain your true potential. Of course, what are they going to ask for in return? And he envisions a time when we make that Faustian bargain with them. We say, whatever resources you need, however we can help you do that, make us live forever, free of disease, in a utopia on Earth. And that so many people will flock to that. And that bargain is going to be, he theorizes, the mark of the beast. But for people of faith, people of sincere faith, such as myself, Cobra, Chris, who might not want to play in that sandbox, well, then this new paradigm of Earth says, we can't have your genetic material lingering. So I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to do business. You're not going to be able to buy and sell. You're not going to be able to have children.
I know a lot of people want to get rid of my genetic material right now.
No, but first ostracization from society while the camps are being built, and then the extermination of people of faith as prophesied in the Bible. Until that time, when God says, all right, curtain's coming down here, Jesus returns and takes on this alliance with the help of his armies from heaven. And evil is vanquished. These evil species that have enslaved humanity with their approval of being enslaved in this nightmare will be eradicated, and then the earth will be recreated, new heavens and new earth. That's the end game that he foresees.
I don't know if you know this, Padre, but all that stuff is happening right now under our noses.
Oh yeah.
I'll give you an example. I give you in New York, very few people know this, But Governor Cuomo, before he got kicked out of office, put up a thing during COVID to make health camps. These camps, if you were deemed to have a certain disease or a certain sickness, without a warrant, they can take you out of your house and put you in a camp, and they can only determine when they deem you are not, and you don't have a trial. You don't. It has nothing to do with you don't have the constitutional rights because it's under the Department of Health. And we fought it here in New York, and they had to back off on it. But a judge, not that long ago, said it was fine for the governor to be able, the new governor, Hochul, to allow those. She fought it and wanted those camps. And a judge in Rochester says that because you have not had anybody in a camp yet, you have no authority to be able to stop it.
Oh, boy.
So that is something that here in New York could very well happen. And it was explained to me by the lawyer that fought this, that they can come to your house, the police can come to your house, take you, your children, your wife out of your house without a trial, put you into a camp. You're not examined by your doctor. You have to be examined by a state doctor in order to be released. And only they can determine that. That's how scary this is, that it's see, here's the thing. A lot of stuff we talk about is actually happening. In Africa, as Commander Cobra said, there are certain sections of the population being wiped out because they're Christians.
Yes.
I mean, we've even brought it out in the news now that President Trump says he might want to put ground troops in there to stop this evil. So Christianity is under attack, been under attack for years, but nobody really talks about it. The mainstream media doesn't pick it up. A lot of stuff, and it's happening here in the United States. And I don't want to make this a political show, but I want to feed off of what you talked about. We're seeing Christianity being pulled out of Patterson, New Jersey, Dearborn, Michigan. They're trying to do it in certain parts of Texas. And I believe we are in a spiritual battle right now.
We are.
And the Christians are the targets.
Yes. Christians are, believe it or not, the most persecuted people group on planet Earth right now. And it's not just in Africa, though, to your point, 7,000 Christians have been killed just in Nigeria in just the last year. And it's going on in China, it's going on in Korea now. South Korea has taken a very nasty turn.
Yeah, that's a very, very serious turn of events there.
Well,
Right.
look at our spiritual component now. We have lost I believe the United States has lost our way. Certain factions in the United States have lost our way and turning toward a government faction to take care of us, as opposed to ourselves taking care of ourselves.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. Commander, you're looking at me.
No, it does. Before we return back to our UFO UAP kind of run on this, because I don't think this is not far off of it. This is definitely connected. What's the American dream? House, car, financial freedom. No, it used to be live free, liberty. That used to be the American dream. American dream was liberty, the ability to live the way you wanted to live, obviously within a set of a social compact that you had to get along with people. That's what it was. And you're right, Chris. Now, if we're going to go down the line where we have a large growing faction that believes the government needs to supply all this free stuff, and there is no free stuff, somebody's paying for it. That we've really morphed into that. Take that now and put it against the question that we talk about almost every week on this program. Disclosure.
Yeah.
Never friggin' gonna happen.
No.
It can't. Because if we're only partially correct about what has gone on and what is going on, In fact, the perversion of what we're doing in hearings and encounter sessions and hand holding that's going on about this, and gavels that are tapping the little wooden disc on the desk to call the room to order to hear this. Well, Chris, you bring it up all the time. You have a witness that's being entered into the congressional record that makes the claim people have been murdered because of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Next item. What?
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
Hello. What?
Yeah.
Could you read that line back to me one more time? The old days when you had the person with the stenographer, typing away. Could you read that back for me? People have been murdered for this. Got it. Thanks. But it does fit. And this is what we've talked about this since we've all been together on this show and countless times before that. We have left the age of talking about this being just one area. It is all connected.
It is. And there's an article from April of this year, an interview with Jacques Vallée, noted researcher. And he was explaining about the various problems that disclosure would bring. I just want to read just a short bit here from the interview. He says, quote, "If we want to disclose something as simple as saying, yes, we acknowledge the phenomenon and it seems to be from space, we would have to answer 100 other questions. That this is not the end of the story," Vallée noted. "There are religious questions. There is a religious side to all of this." And he is on record elsewhere as saying that makes him very uncomfortable because he's a scientist. We have had Marjorie Taylor Greene. We've had Anna Poluna. We've had even the vice president just in the last month, each of them saying that there is a spiritual side to the phenomenon. And those three individuals believe that we're dealing with angels, demons, or God's small g, going all the way back to antiquity. That is not the history that we have been taught. And we know now there's so much archaeological evidence to show us that the history that we have learned in school is a lie, that these monoliths that have been built all around the world, many of them similar in shape with similar inscriptions, by advanced civilizations that predated an event that took place 12,000 or so years ago. Don calls it the Younger Dryas event. But all the cultures of the world have this catastrophic event. It involves a flood, along with other things, geological activities, tsunamis, volcanoes, and so forth. The first 6 chapters of Genesis in the Bible, if we look at that and evaluate it as when God created man, he imparted so much of himself into humanity. There's no reason to believe that Adam and Eve didn't come into existence without having the maximum amount of knowledge a human could have. The ability to do extraordinary things, full knowledge of mathematics, full knowledge of science, full knowledge of the way to administrate the earth, which we were designed to do. I believe there's sufficient evidence that points to the original humans were much larger than we are, on the order of 10 to 15 feet tall, much stronger. Mr. Alberino in the book talks about taking these entities from Greek mythology, intertwining them with the Book of Enoch and the Bible to point to this attempt to re-engineer humanity. In Genesis 6:1, it talks about the sons of God looking on the daughters of men and finding them appealing And he goes into other ancient texts that describe the same thing happening, and how there was an attempt to inseminate with genetic material women of Earth, and they gave birth to giants. And in that process, how women died giving birth to these abnormally large babies that grew to these incredible statures. And these giants, then, the Nephilim, who are the offspring of the Watchers, who were supposed to be the caretakers of Earth, how the Nephilim turned on humanity, began to eat us, began to enslave us, do all kinds of cruel and weird stuff to us. And that's when God said, okay, we're going to punch the reset button here. And that's when the global catastrophe takes place. And Mr. Alberino makes the case that these Nephilim who were slain in the flood, the Younger Dryas event, whatever you want to call it, their spirits now wander the earth as demons. And that is what is responsible for demonic possession. That these beings who had once known what it was like to be able to experience the sensations of humanity, such as taste and smell and all the things that we enjoy in the finer things of life, now denied that, but forced to wander the earth. And they will possess animals or humans in an attempt to acquire, if only just for a short period of time, that sensation. And these Watchers, while they were interfering genetically with humans, according to some of these ancient texts, were also performing genetic experiments on animals. And there were all kinds of strange creatures that came about, which he argues were a lot of these mythological beasts of old, like the multi-headed dogs, Cerberus, minotaurs.
Minotaurs, yeah, the single eye.
Cyclops.
Well,
in fact,
Cyclops,
this the kind of construction that they're seeing all around the planet in these monoliths are now known as Cyclopean architecture, traced back to Greek mythology, how these Cyclops were, again, offspring from this variant spawn that originated with the Watchers. And people say, well, how can a demonic being come into a person? And I'm actually preaching a part of this on Sunday, so indulge me just for a moment here, gentlemen. We're made up of cells, which are made up of molecules, which are made up of atoms. Trillions of atoms make up the human body. But the volume of an atom, you've got the nucleus in the middle, that's your neutrons and your protons, and orbiting electrons. More than 95%, in fact, it's actually more than 99% of the volume of an atom is empty space. If you were to take a human being and be able to remove the empty space between the nucleus and the orbiting electrons and push it all together, a human being in actual matter would amount to about a grain of rice in size. There's that much empty space in us. And that's empty space that God had originally designed to be filled with his spirit to live in fellowship with us for eternity. But now it's just space for rent sign hanging in every human. And we have to decide, who are we going to rent our space out to? Are we going to rent it out to God through faith in Jesus Christ, filled with his Holy Spirit? Or are we going to allow other entities to come into us and occupy the space that is us? So that's what I'm talking about in my church on Sunday. But this is a thought exercise that originated in these books. And I just want to toss out one more book here. It's Rungs of Disclosure by L.A. Marzulli. We had him on the show here a few weeks ago. An absolutely fascinating as if going the rungs of a ladder of what would ultimately happen with disclosure. And he comes to some of the same conclusions that Mr. Alberino does about how the aliens have been manipulating the genetics of humanity, how it continues, Chris, to this day, and how it's all going to culminate in this event that's coming upon our species soon. End sermon from the Padre. Comments, Commander Cobra.
I'm in total agreement. And if you think about the space between the electron and the neutron and the proton, the nucleus, a lot can be understood there just by the most casual explanation of physics as we understand it right now, and energy and how things go. I'm going to throw one book up because we're getting close toward the end, and it's one of my favorite books because of people in there, and it brings us a little off the theological exploration that we're doing, although I'm very comfortable and I enjoy it. And that's the Aztec, if we can get that to spring up. So leave this up for a real quick second. Scott and Susie Ramsey and Frank, I've had the benefit of a great friendship with the three of them, especially Scott and Susie, over the years. They were on my show a couple of times. This case brings up such emotion. It is a completely made up event to it is an extraterrestrial event. I just want to tell you the reason I always tell people to take a look at this book is the level of investigation and scholarship they have done documenting what is going on, what went on, what they found. And that, to me, is important. Chris, especially you will understand this. When you pick up an old file or a report, you can tell right off the bat how well it was investigated by how well it was documented or written. When we do test work, test flight work, test pilots, test flight engineers spend an inordinate amount of time how to document in the written prose what happened when you were on that particular flight or test event. It's an incredible amount of time that is spent on that. That's why I love the Aztec book, and I really do love the Ramseys. They're an incredible couple. Great backstory to how they met, how this case is integral to it. Work real jobs all the other times on there. Multiple years of investigating, meeting people, documenting. But the way they document and the way they log, it is, regardless how you feel about the event, if it didn't occur, it occurred, it's a hoax, it's not a hoax. I mean, almost every case out there has this incredible drama. Yes, no. It happened, it didn't happen. And to me, it goes right back to the overall discussion about the good versus evil part of it, that we have this contest. That's how we're wired. We're wired to be taken into, that absolutely happened. I've told you guys for years. My pendulum has swung that I'm convinced that Roswell is what most of you guys have told me on this show, is an extraterrestrial event. I went through a good couple decades of looking at going, no, the stuff that's there, absolutely not. It just didn't add up to me. And I started out from the part when I first was exposed to it. Oh, absolutely. It made sense. The bodies, the whole thing on there. But you have to look at the whole thing to come up with that conclusion, because there is a lot of hocus pocus that's been involved in it. There's absolutely no possible you can look at this and say that everything is verbatim truth. It's not. There are people that have manipulated it and played that game. So I throw out the Aztec book because to me, it's one of the best examples of people who take a very serious professional approach. They spent a number of years on one of my favorite friends who does a lot of paranormal work absolutely loses his mind when he watches these shows on TV where they go in for a night and they set up the cameras, and they got their spirit boxes and they've got their lights and everything, and then they wake up the next morning and they pull all the gear out, and then the people show up. You got ghosts here, look at this, and it said this, and it said 19, and that's significant, and it's great. Where in his life, they're there for months of overnights, months of collection, months of trying to get interaction and go on with that. And between those two places, I think is where you have to be looking at it. If you were in the Hudson River Valley and you saw the flying boomerang go over, I don't think you need to have something happen there. There are people that will tell you that was a man-made project on a flight test program just because of the way it was flown and the nights that it was seen. It's pretty amazing stuff.
When now,
we'll come to the end of the show.
I want to just answer a question here. Somebody asked in closing here what our thoughts are about the Age of Disclosure movie that's coming up here in a couple of weeks to be released. I have not seen it. There's a lot of internet buzz about it. I know that among those who have seen it, it gets 6.7 out of 10 on our rating. Do you guys have any quick thoughts about the movie?
I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen it. And I'm trying not to prejudice myself by getting too deep into other people's opinions. I want to see this one on my own and then talk about it. So I'm looking forward to it. Chris?
Some people say that it's supposed to be really great. I've actually talked to somebody who did see it, had a private viewing. He said he thought it was excellent the way it was done, but you're not going to learn too much more than what we already know.
That seems to be the same song, different verse that we've come accustomed to. I know from the reviews that I've read, people either really like it or they really don't like it. Well, gentlemen, it has been another adventure into the realm of UAP and related subjects. I want to thank you both for being with us. And to the greatest audience on the planet, please join us again for another episode of UAP Crossfire next Thursday night. Good night.